Hello and welcome back to the podcast. It is me, Mark, and we're back again with the usual crew and an additional member of the original crew. So I'm going to start with Jamie. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, mate. Thanks for disturbing my drink of the tea there.
That's why I did it. I thought I'd interrupt you mid-flow. So it's nice of you to come back on. Jamie, as those of you will remember, was part of the original podcast coming together as we are now. Did the 2391 series, I think, back at the beginning, didn't we? Which is still going down a storm, that one, actually. It's been...
Still going down good, that, yeah. Evergreen content there if you're doing 2391. Still pump that out to people now, and I still think it's useful. So, yeah, it was what we did first, that. Probably about a year ago, I think.
It is. And we had I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of it, but Jamie fell on his sword for a short while, which was very much appreciated my end, and it was good of him to do so. So, as I always say, look at what people do, not what people say they do. Jamie's a top guy, so thanks for coming back tonight.
Fuck, sorry, mate, I just dipped my light there, sorry.
And we've also got Craig with us again. How are you, Craig?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. You guys?
I am. Jamie's just having technical difficulties wrestling with his lamp, for those of you who are listening.
He seems to be arguing the lights quite a lot. He always seems to be
hit my light.
I think lights and torches have got it in for Jamie, aren't they? They're all like...
I only do power. I don't do lighting. I just do power, I'm afraid. So, yeah.
How are you, Craig, anyway? You all right, mate?
Yeah, good. Manically busy, but, best place to be, isn't it?
It is. And this topic we're going to cover tonight is your idea. It's your brainchild. So you're the one who's responsible for it. If the audience have any complaints, this is Craig's idea. We've also got Richard with us tonight. How are you, Richard?
Very well, thanks, mate. Not too bad. Still painting. Still got a list of jobs to do when I get home from work. You know how it goes. So, yeah, not too bad. I got bits of wood in the kitchen on stands with dust sheets on the floor at all various stages. But, and still putting a famous... house builders electrical work correct in my own house, but it's all good fun.
That'll keep you busy for a good while, I would say. If you've got a new build with some electrics, then there'll be the plumbing to sort out. Hopefully it's still standing, mate.
Never ending, man. In new builds, they just seem to run like about 3 inches of silicone around everything when there's absolutely no need for it. So it's
do your best and cork the rest, I think they say, don't
they? It's all good fun, mate. It's all good fun.
Well, today we're going to talk about electrical design. So I guess most of us would understand that's been the 2396, I think. But before we get into the meat and bones of that, yeah, you probably wouldn't. We're going to, is it the 2400, the original one, I think?
2400. No, yeah. That's the second one. I'm sure, I don't steal Craig's something, but it's 200 for me. And someone else, I spoke to him the other day, goes, oh no, that's called this. And it's the earlier one, I think. So I'm sure Craig will fill me in on what's what.
No doubt. Before we get into the nuts and bolts and that, though, we'll just reintroduce ourselves because we have had quite a lot of new followers coming on YouTube and with the listening community growing as well. So we'll start with Craig. What's your background, mate? Just very briefly.
Yeah, so ex-army, left the army, went into teaching, recently left teaching, gone back out into the electrical industry and working, doing a mix between project management, electrical design, pricing and in QS and search for the company we're at. So a bit of everything, really.
Awesome. So I would describe you as an expert lecturer who is now back out in industry. That'd be my short description. And what about yourself, Jamie?
I'm a beanbag face. No, I am an apprentice trained electrician I was an apprentice in 1998, 4 years. Then I spent the majority of that time after that being a quiet electrician until another electrician on social media mugged me off. So I thought, I'll go on social media and be louder than you, which I've been doing now for about a year. I've been a tutor. I'm a Royal Engineer, electrical engineer, and I am currently working in the energy sector as a controls and instrumentation engineer. Just want to emphasize that I'm an engineer.
Awesome. And for those of you with that who don't get that comment there, you go and watch on the Monday Club or Electricians podcast, whatever Sam and Jamie are calling it these days.
I also co-host the biggest and bestest electricians podcast called Electricians Podcast. Find us.
It's well named. And there's a running argument on there about if Jamie's an engineer or not. Sam insists that he's not, and Jamie insists that he is. And I have to say I'm on Jamie's side.
I'm sure we'll be covering that about this today because it's.
We most likely will do it. It'll fall into it, won't it? And we've also got Richard with us. What's your background, Richard?
Cool. We ain't got all day, but started my journey into the industry in 91 through 4-year apprenticeship. Qualified in 95. Did the C course, which was the original design course in 96. 2391, 97, etc., etc., etc. Come out of industry 10 years ago, although still did a few bits and pieces, part-time lecturer, went back to university, did my teaching degree, etc. Been in teaching for the last 10 years. So delivered all these courses, apprenticeship framework, all that. And very soon, a few weeks' time, starting my journey as a technical safety engineer for electrical safety first. So looking forward to that. So hopefully I'll be able to have an influence at a higher level, lobbying the government and hopefully combining people like yourselves and our certification bodies and awarding bodies and all that together to create a collective vision and way forward to make the industry a safer place. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, bread and butter stuff, 2396 and all that. So yeah, all good.
Awesome. So I mean, that's congratulations, by the way, on that job role. That's big news for you, and I'm pleased for you. Well done. But yeah, we're gonna chat about the electrical design kind of things, and we've got two experts from recent times in training, and we've got Jamie as well, who's been a lecturer in the past and is now out in industry, and just me, who's an electrical contractor winging it, talking to these legends.
I should have mentioned I do design and I do design and consulting on the side, so that is why I'm here.
It's relevant to all of us, isn't it? This. So I mean,
yeah. Although I do sub some of it out to Craig. So yeah, there's two of us on here who can talk about recent stuff I've done, because when it's too hard for me, I sub it out to Craig. So yeah, so it's the ideal setup. This is.
So this is kind of focused in on apprentices, really, to open their eyes to what is possible in industry. And Craig flagged up the design aspect, and we're looking at the city and guild side of it. I'm sure EAL have an equivalent somewhere as well. But it is kind of focused in onto that. And the pass rates around all that and the numbers entering into this kind of training as an overall site of industry are quite low, aren't they, I think?
Yeah, I mean, I was going back through the chief examiner papers over the last sort of year or so, and I was noticing a trend and wondering, why is it so low? So when I gave some very rough ballpark figures, the amount of people that took the design course in the last 12 months or so was approximately 498 electricians, which for me seems really low considering of the amount of people we're seeing qualifying into industry. And
what's that number, Craig? How many? No, just some proportion, because I don't know, right? How many people are qualifying every year, and how many sparkies are there?
Well, depending on where you go for what you class as qualifying, whether you class level 3 or whether you class gold card, you've got probably anywhere between my electrical department and my last college was about 560 students strong, with probably a couple of hundred of them being apprentices finishing the year or level 3 qualified technical students going out into the industry to then go and do their NVQs. And it's whether so if I've got in one college, let's say 150 to 200 electricians, you multiply that across the amount of colleges, the amount of private training providers, you must have somewhere in the region of 4,000 or 5,000 people qualifying every year, I would suggest.
So every 400 sparkies get a designer there.
Yeah.
It's frightening, isn't it, when you think that we all do design on the daily. A lot of smaller contractors, especially, without realising, they're designing, aren't they? And you know, the only real qualification you've got for it is in your original training, I suppose.
I just find it
an
incredibly low number.
But that's not where it ends, really, which is what I guess took me into looking at some of this, because please, status quo, all these figures are very rough figures and not exact before someone comes and gives me the exact output. But that course only has about a 38% pass rate.
Wow. So of the 400,
500.
Who's designing everything then for you young kids out there? That's insane.
So and I was looking through it. So I worked out that of the 498 that sat last year, roughly 17 of them managed to get a distinction, roughly 52 of them managed to get a merit, and then roughly 121 of them managed to get a pass. So 190 people out of 498 people managed to successfully achieve the course in a year, which started to make me wonder, is it the regs? I don't think the course is too hard, because I think the course should be hard because of what it lets you do. So are we not learning the regs? Is there a problem with training? Is there a problem in the industry? Like, where's the gap? Because that's quite a big number of only 38% actually managed to get the qualification that's set it year on year. And I don't know the answer, really, to be honest. I guess that's what I wanted us to talk about and explore.
One of the things I'd seen, and the first thing I'd say on it, there seems to be a lot of online training for 2396 now. I don't know how you feel about that, and if people are getting the proper tuition maybe and guidance on the course. I know the people who are attending it should really be, you know, at the top of the game already. Do you think that could be a factor, that it's not in a classroom maybe?
But even when they are in the classroom, I would say the biggest thing that I see is sometimes the courses are on the day of the exam. Why are you getting taught actually the full design, or are you getting taught ready for the exam? Because it comes in two parts, and I've never taught this course, so Richard might have a better insight than me on this, but you do the exam, which is a 3-hour written exam, which is what the course generally trains you up for, the written exam. But then you go away and you have to do your whole design project yourself and work it out yourself. And then you get one chance, once you submit it, you get one chance to make edits. And if you don't, then you fail. But so that makes me wonder, of the figure that I'm given, I'm only talking about the actual written exam. So how many more people don't then pass the project? Because there's not any figures I can find.
I was going to say,
that.
On mine, which was a 2-400, and I'm thinking it's a course, isn't it, an exam, and then you've got a project separately, which sounds very similar to 2-400. I don't think there's substantial changes. I've got to admit, I went and did the course, I passed the exam, and I didn't submit the project for about 18 months. And that was like a bit of a, like, I just need to sit down and do this and stop. It's hard. It's hard to motivate yourself to do that project, I think. And the support I got, when I did it years ago, a really good trainer in Nottingham Elm, which are now closed down, there was no support. But I don't think there's meant to be, is there?
No, so my understanding is you go and you've got 40, they say it'll take you approximately 40 hours to put the project together and answer all the questions. There is no assessor's guide as to what it looks like, because it is up to your assessor to make your judgments of your project based on their design knowledge that they have of how you've applied the design for the project. Richard will know better than me on that probably, but that's my understanding from what I've been digging around in.
Yeah, the problem fundamentally is that people that undertake this qualification do not have sufficient understanding of 7671. That's the problem. They know the book's there. They've got an idea of how it's structured, but they don't have an understanding of it. And within the written paper, there are 3 types of questions. There is an explain question, there is a list question, and there is a state question. So a list question is quite simple. Find the information in the regs and you list exactly what the regulations say. The state is very similar to list, but you've got to add additional information in terms of your own interpretation of what it is that it's stating. The difficult questions are explain, because to explain something, you need an understanding of it. That's the problem with it. Within the written papers, as always, first 2 questions are always a cable calc. So there's always a full cable calc question 1, which will include, you know, your design current. It'll include any correction factors, your rating of your protected device. It'll include shock protection in terms of will it achieve maximum disconnection under earth fault conditions. There'll be a thermal constraint calculation, calculating the minimum size CPC. And following on from that, the second question will expand on that and look at short circuit protection. Will the device disconnect under short circuit conditions? So you've got 2 cable calcs, which are complex enough as it is, and you need a good understanding of Appendix 4 to deal with that. And then you've got these explain, list, and state questions. And it is hard, and it's not just design, it's design and verification. So within that written paper, you're obviously going to have some questions on verification, on testing. So you need a good knowledge of the regs fundamentally, but also a good knowledge of verification testing.
You,
So
you know the
you
no,
undertake this.
no,
Go on, mate,
you know
sorry.
this though, Rich, right? I just want
Yeah.
to clarify this for people listening. Yeah.
Yeah.
No one's forcing anyone to do this course, are there? This is an
No.
electrician's course, isn't it? This isn't just something a provider should be flogging you once you've
No.
done an 18th edition. This is something that
This-
you should go and do
this
when
is
you're
not-
comfortable around it.
It's not a Mickey Mouse course, and it's the same as 2391. You know, you shouldn't be undertaking that level of course or qualification without a really good understanding of not only the practical side of things, but actually the underpinning knowledge that goes with the instrument. I press the button, I write down the value. What does it mean? You know, the amount of electricians or people that I've spoken to delivering 2391, and fundamentally everything's based on the regs. It has to be. So if you're verifying a loop impedance value and you're verifying that value against a table, well, what does it actually mean? What's it for? What is impedance? You know, you have to go right back to basics. What's basic protection? What do I need? What's fault protection? What protective measure am I using? But it's all based on the regs. The problem is that regs courses are delivered now with there's 60 questions. Go and have a look, find the information. You find the information in a book. There's no knowledge. There's no understanding of it. And I'm not saying I understand the regs because I've got a good understanding of it. I'd like to think, but it is a technical book, and certainly with the 18th and each amendment that's gone with it, I think it's got better. It's the best version of it I've dealt with in a number of years because I've tried to clarify certain things and tried to make it easier to read. But fundamentally, you need an understanding of it because everything's designed to it. And this level 4 design course is not for the faint-hearted, as you quite rightly say. You've got to be.
Dare I say that this has not been dumbed down? You know, a lot of the courses have been dumbed down. I'm not being negative on anyone.
As Craig said,
It's the only course that escaped dumbing down because it's not required for jobs. 2391's in a lot of job roles now, and this isn't.
And it's not marked internally. Don't forget, these papers are delivered, recorded, and they are sent back recorded. You're not allowed to see the paper until the night of the exam. No one can see them. They are handed out. They are collected back and sent straight back for marking at City and Guilds.
That's old school.
That's how it is.
That's old school.
Do you think this is more like due to the base level of qualification in industry rather than the delivery of this course? Then that's kind of what I'm reading into what you're saying, basically, that it's not so much the issue of teaching this, it's the standard of the electricians coming forward to take the course, I guess.
Exactly, because they've got to have a certain amount of underpinning knowledge to start with, because you can't go back and teach them the regs because they should already have it. And when you say, well, have you done the regs? Yeah, I've done it, mate. I did a course online. Brilliant. You know, I didn't have to take time off work. Give me some practice questions. Yeah, I got like 78%. Brilliant. So I said, what you're telling me is you can find information in a book, but you've got no understanding of the structure of it and how it, you know, the interpretation of certain parts. Well, not really, but I don't need to know that. But you do because you're the designer. In the certification in Appendix 6, when you're signing that part as the designer, you are saying that you are responsible for the design of this installation. Yeah, but I don't need that because it's 2.5 for a ring, innit? 1.5 for lighting, chuck a 6 million for the cooker. That's it. But it's not, is it?
But that brings me to such an interesting point and my pet peeve of, because yes, I think some of the training standard is too low, but also the industry standard is a little bit low as well, in my opinion, because the amount of time you're seeing. So I was teaching level 3 design last night to a group of students, and we went through a cable car. I said, favourite question I always go with, what do you put a shower in the house? Oh, it's always a 6 mil, it's always a 10 mil. Okay, is it? Well, let's look if we put it in the loft insulation then. What about if it's buried in more than 300 mil worth of insulation? What is it then? Oh, wait, 116. Oh, so who put 16 mil in for a shower? Or no one. Okay, what are we thinking about? And you see it all the time. I say, how many people think if you're a one-man band working domestically, and I'm not knocking Domestic Sparks for this comment, but how many of them go in and go, oh, I'm the designer, I need to make sure that my cable routes don't go through here because I don't want to always just say that a shower goes in a 6 mil or a 10 mil because that's what everybody's always said, as Rich is saying. How many are actually doing the calc or thinking about the route they're taking to allow for that and thinking about thermal damage? And I would probably say not as many as are signing the certificate saying that they are the designer and not realising what it means.
I used to teach a level 1 course. I'm sorry. I used to teach level 1 course, you know, the 5-day introduction level 1 type course that used to be done where I worked as part of like an introductory package. And they do a very basic cable calculation on that, you know, where it doesn't do your thermal effects, just work out the cable size and all that good share. And there's people in there going, I don't need this because I'm only going to do asses. And I'm like thinking, well, you're not going to fit a cooker then, are you? And you never going to do that. And like, I don't know where that mentality comes from, but like you say, everything gets designed. Even if you just think, oh, I'll go and do this and I'll get that, you're designing. So you're going to sign the design off, no matter how level spark you are. This is just more of a formality for people who advance in design too much. And I always say, always ask someone if you're struggling. Well, when you have a designer, there's no one to ask. The book stops with you. So, right, it's an hard course, but I don't know if certainly industry's to blame for dumbing down the industry. So the training got dumbed down. But at the end of the day, if you're going to design, you're going to end up in court, aren't you? You're going to end up in court if you get it wrong. It's a simple fact.
We all, like you said, Jamie, we all design without realising, don't we? Even if you don't think you're a designer, you know, you tend to be at some stage or other. You're going to be designing electrical circuits.
You are, yeah. If you say I'm putting a shower cable in, I'm going to clip it to the wall up through the bedroom, or I'm going to get trunk in, or I'm going to get YT2, I'm going to chop it in. That's design. I don't think people realise that everything's designed. It didn't just all fall into the wall without you thinking about it. And ultimately, you sign for that. And if you don't understand some of this stuff, you're going to get yourself in trouble or set someone on fire, basically.
There must be a demand in industry. Sorry, Craig, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, I think people take design to be, if it's written down on a calculation on a bit of paper, then it counts as design. If it's just somebody doing it in their head based on what they know, they don't class it as being design.
That's probably a fair summary of it, I think. There must be a demand out in industry for this, though. I mean, the job you've got now, Craig, obviously heavily involved in design. Is there a lot of drive from employers trying to find people with these qualifications? I'm imagining not, if we've got such a low number coming through taking the course.
I think that electrical design is an area of the industry that is often undersold as far as like what prospects there is out there, and the consultancy side of life that comes with it. People tend to think sparking is tools, don't they? And that's what it is, and that's what you do, and not actually what happens when you go past that. But the problem for me is you fundamentally don't have to have the design course to be a designer. So we're going back to the what is a sparky conversation, and we're going back to what is a designer conversation, because it's not actually set in stone that has to take place.
Is it internal? Is this a thing that, like, you know, like NG Bailey style, they're doing Hinkley Point and they want 5,000 sparks? Is this something they run internally, their own internal training? That's why a lot of people don't do it. Is this the only design course you can take, or are they just doing their own sort of competency training house for that kind of thing, like the bigger firms? Is that how it works?
No, I don't think so, but I don't know. I think some of the bigger firms are actually a bit more restrictive to it, to be honest. So I used to work for an electrical maintenance company in around London, and part of their conditions, all their electrical contracts managers had all done the level 4 design. It was a stipulation of what they had to do, but it's probably one of the only times I've seen that you have to have a level 4 design qualification to undertake or apply for a design job. It normally says along the lines of level 4 HNC or equivalent or experience in that area. So I think you can just get by with experience if you've learned how to do stuff in-house, or you show that you've got a good working knowledge of it, rather than actually having to have formal qualifications in it. But that is only from what I've seen in my little section.
Is the HNC
HNC is a level 4. HNC is a level 4.
Oh, it's a level 4 as well.
Yeah. HND is a level 5, so HNC is a level 4.
Do you think this course could be utilised in a way to help raise the standard in industry? I think you mentioned this off recording, Craig, but about maybe the QSs that are out there maybe needing to hold this qualification if they're kind of supervising teams of electricians and designing systems. Is it something that maybe the CPSs should look at introducing as a requirement?
I'm led to believe many years ago it actually used to be a requirement to be a QS. I think when the original C course came out, that to be an NIC QS, for example, you had to have done the original C course to be able to even apply for that part of the role. And as with everything else over years, that's kind of dwindled and faded. But I think you should, because if you're going to QS and sign off other people's work and installations, you should probably be able to understand the design of it to be able to sign it off. But that mold is not there, if you like.
Because I would position this course as been like, I'd position this course as been for that kind of person who's been through the training, they've got a relevant period of experience, and you kind of wanting to progress your career into maybe management roles and things. So you do your design course, then it's not really for somebody who's fresh out into industry, I would say. So if you're looking at this from an apprentice's point of view, you know, you may be talking 5-10 years into your post-qualified before you even consider it. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me for QSs to have to do that.
You know what though? I don't, to move it a bit, like it's a brilliant course. It's really good. I really enjoyed doing mine. If I did mine about a year out of my apprenticeship, it was probably a little bit too soon. And if you're super duper on everything, like if you whiz at AutoCAD and you whiz at curb coasting, then get it down you straight away. But if you're 10 years in, you can go back and do this. But it's a mint course. I really enjoyed it, and I still use stuff I learned on it now. Like I still lay out my schedules and stuff and do it pretty much. I laid that one out when I did it. I think mine was a prison or something like that. Your defence institute, something like that. But are they still the same things, are there? Because there's quite a complicated line.
They change, you know, every year there's a new drawing, but they are really good. And back in the day, it was pushed more when I was at college, because when you applied for your JRB card, when you qualified, you'd done AM2, etc., you then get your installation card. Then obviously you'd have to have at least 2 years experience on site. You could then go and apply and do your 2391. You had to have a written statement off your employer at that time.
Yeah.
Suitable for it. You could then apply for your approved card. Then if you did the C course, or as it was then 2400, and you had 5 years experience with some experience of design, you could then apply for your technician's card. But you could not have your technician's card without C or 232 for 2400, or as it is now 2396. And back then your installation sparks, whatever it was per hour, let's say 15 quid. 2391 meant you get another couple of quid on top, and then your technician rate was another couple of quid on top of that. So it was always pushed to go and, you know, reach out and go and better yourself in terms of, you know, getting.
You've just described my career path. That is literally what I did, exactly to the letter. Yeah. What you've just said is how it went for me.
It's still the same now, but you know, the JRB is not recognised by every company, and you know, some people class it as an old men's club, blah blah blah. But it's still something to aspire to, and as you quite rightly say, it's a great course. But it requires a level of knowledge and understanding that most people don't have. You need experience, and with experience, that doesn't happen overnight, does it? That happens over time, and you need mentors and people within industry like Mark, etc., to give the time and guidance, you know, to these lads or ladies that want to obtain this qual. But as I say to my learners, aim high and go out there and get as many quals as you can. But you need understanding to go with them, and that's what, because it's written, you can't guess it. It's not a multi-choice. You know, you need to have that knowledge and understanding of it. You know, so
sure.
As you said, Rich.
Sorry, go on, Craig.
I was going to say, as you said, Rich, it's still the same with the JIB now. You still cannot get a technician gold card if you've not got at least 5 years experience and got your design course. They will not give you more than the approved electrician status. And I know lots of people, as you say, don't like it, but it is, I guess, that bragging right to be, 40% of electricians in the country that are able to say they can work to that level, because technically, according to the facts of the exam, the other 60% can't. And that's got to be in itself a credit to be trying to aim for. If you are an aspiring apprentice and looking for future jobs, then you're going to open yourself up to a market that is potentially untapped, because there's not that many electricians that I know of that can do design, that can do CAD, that can do kind of that whole piece. You normally have a drafts person from university doing the CAD drawings, and then somebody in Sparky kind of checking out the calcs. And so if you position yourself in that nice little corner where you can do both sides of the situation, electrical consultants earn some good money. You know, it's that kind of...
What's the damage on one of these courses? What's the damage on this course?
About 800 quid.
You know, if you are thinking about it, if you like design, I would strongly suggest, from an industry point of view, which I still linger in, I'm not like all you teachers, no, right? Get on it, because I design now, right? And if I get it a bit complicated as a joke towards the start, yeah, when I want to do some hardcore cable calcs, I sub them out to Craig. He does them for me. But I do a lot of installation designs now because I've got sufficient experience. I look at a job and sort of go, I know I can do that. I'm at the minute I'm designing the audio installation for a football stadium, yeah. But it's not something I could have just done without. I designed some little offices. I designed that, and I built up all that knowledge. And not only in my electrical work, hands-on of how things work better, but also designing. Unless you go and crack the nut and try and never got this course, if you fancy design, you'll never go anywhere. And your first job is always going to be cack. It's always going to be a mess. But I mean, as you said, Craig, I have to use you because I can't use the software you use. I've got a skill shortage in here. And this is only going to get worse. Anyone that can crack this nut and gets into regs and reads into it and learns all this stuff and gets this course is going to make an absolute fortune. Yeah.
No, as you said, Jamie, there's massive positives to it. There's lots of problems in the pass rate and the numbers of people doing it, but the positives around the course are amazing. It's like you said, it's a really good course to do. I've done it. I really enjoyed it, and there's career opportunities that are opened up through doing it. So if you are an apprentice or a retrainee listening to this and you're kind of looking at where you might take yourself in the future, definitely it's one to be aiming at. How does this course actually look for someone who's studying it? And for those who are listening and wondering what's actually involved, I know when I did it, it was on an evening. I think it was over something like 10 to 15 weeks. I think now they will deliver it in week-long blocks, and then you go away and have to do your project after that. But what's it actually look like as that course is delivered?
Very much that in my experience. So I'm doing the 2396 now, and where I'm going, it's a week-long course, from Monday to Friday. That happens a couple of weeks before the exam, which is one of the reasons why I picked that provider. So you've got a couple of weeks to sort of go back through stuff and understand. And then, as you say, you have to go in for the exam on a Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock, I think, and everybody that's done the course sits on the same Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock, which is why what Richard said is the exam papers get delivered to all the centres that day, and they get handed out that night. And they have to be back by a certain time on the Wednesday, I think, so they know that people aren't hanging on to them and doing what have you. And then after the exam, you are very much in on your own to put your project together and work it out. You can do it, but you still have to do the project old school, which is good and bad, I think, because times are moving on. So you still have to produce your calculations yourself. No software is allowed to be used. You can use CAD for the drawings, or you can hand mark the drawings. It depends on whichever way you want. And then you have to go out and produce a good old-fashioned set of O&Ms and different bits and pieces, because the actual exam, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, but the actual exam, as far as I'm aware, is 10 questions, and all 10 questions have the same weight. So they all are worth, say, 20 marks each, and you have to get a set amount of marks to get the pass, the merit, or the distinction, which it's not published what each of those boundaries actually are, because it's internally marked by City and Guilds or EAL.
It's stuck in time, this exam, isn't it?
Sure.
It's stuck in time, this course. It's literally the way you go on. It's like when I did it 15 years ago, which I find incredible. Can I just ask someone? You said there you got to produce the O&Ms. You got to draw stuff. You got to do drawings.
You have to do drawings for the actual project, and then you have to produce the manufacturer's data, but you're not, you don't just put it in as like sort of spec sheets and stuff. You need to show your understanding of it. So you need to explain why you've used a particular type of, say you've used ladder in your installation. Why did you choose ladder over choosing, I don't know, trunking or something else? You've got to kind of explain it and then justify your choices in your O&Ms, which is good because it almost becomes like a workmanship doc, I guess, which, I just had to produce a massive workmanship doc this week for a job we tendered for. So it's good having that habit and understanding what else you're applying your regs to understand. If you're talking about fire alarms, you're not just talking about 7671, are you? There's more regs that are involved in that process.
So do you need some CAD? Have you got to draw it by hand? Are you going to have to do some hand drawing, or are you going to have to do you need a bit of CAD experience? Is that a helpful thing, or is that not the level we're looking for?
You have the choice. you're given the drawings in both formats. You can either hand mark it, but it has to be to scale, or you can CAD it.
So, and hand drawing is a dying art anyway. So, so there's quite a lot of prerequisites already for this, of course. You need to be able to handle. But yeah, if you can't CAD or draw, you're not. I think I remember on mine. Do they give you blank draw A3 blank drawing still? Yeah, I think I remember taking them down to Office World. All you kids will remember that. Getting them photocopied and then drawing them by hand.
That's it. Stencil out your 0.01 fine line pen to draw all your.
And you little
That's me screwed.
What some kids, some of you young kids, and that's anyone under 30 for me, will not realise is at one point I know Thorn did them. Thorn Lighting used to send out plastic stencils, and it was all their lights in different lengths, different scales, so you could draw the lights on your drawings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure a bit. Am I saying that? I think you can learn SketchUp quite easily now and do them all in that. But I'm surprised you've got a lot of prerequisites. Like I say, you've got to be able to draw. I'm guessing you said it by hand, but you can use Excel, can you? And that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you have to show. Sorry, I was going to say my understanding, or at least where I'm going, is you have to show full calcs for sort of one light, one ring, one radial, maybe one of something else, and then you can use Excel to do the remainder of each of those categories. But you have to show start to finish for each of your different types of circuits, that you can go all the way from the basic design through all your selection to your thermal constraints at the end and your clarification. And you even have to produce expected test results for each of those circuits to kind of justify what you think you should be seeing at the end of your design for the results.
So if you're not using Excel for this, you're going to get yourself in a right order to work on it. You're going to be doing
but you have to do at least 4 of them fully by hand in long written formats, so that they see you understand what you're doing before you put it into Excel. And then when you do put it into Excel,
by hand, you can't write the code yourself. You've got to show it by hand.
Yeah,
you've got to show one lighting, one power, one ring, and one something else. I can't remember. So you have to effectively show 4. Start to finish, all the way through to expected test results to show you understand how to do the calculation, and then you can do the remainder of the circuits in Excel.
Yeah. I'm not knocking this course. I think this is great that people can go back to these raw methods for doing stuff. Yeah, but are they marking these in a time machine? Where are they getting the people to mark these? This is like, I mean, as a designer and someone that does this kind of stuff every day, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do it. I won't be able to do it. It's gone. I've done the course. I've done it, but I don't think I could do it now. Now by hand, it's crazy. But I suppose you've got to start at the bottom and you work your way up.
It's one of those, isn't it? It's one of those where you need that base load of knowledge to be able to do the job. And like lots of out in industry now, we're using software to cover off most of that. But if you don't know the underpinning, I guess it's equivalent is maybe knowing how to chase out a wall with a hammer and bolster, but you're not going to do that day to day, are you? You're going to get the SDS out or the triple blade Hoover attachment on it and get it done in no time. But you still need to know the older methods and be able to do it by hand. I mean, that's a really challenging exam. The first thing I would say about that, and I think we mentioned it earlier in the podcast, is the huge difference to some of the other courses we've done prior to that. So it's a real step up, isn't it? That's probably why a number of people are failing it.
It's a time machine. This is a time machine. And people will hear me on podcasts and on this, when we did stuff with this on the 2391, that saying, it's been dumbed down, all that. No, you haven't heard me say about this course. This course is exactly the same as what I did by the sounds of it. It's still hard. It's still challenging. People should enjoy that because doing stuff that's hard that not many people do is good. It's enjoyable for me. I don't know what people feel like that, but that's what will get you the big bucks in it at the end of the day. That's what will earn you the money.
It's a way to set yourself apart.
Yeah, but it is the understanding of 7671 is what you need, because there are always questions as well within part 7, and obviously currently there are 20 special installations or locations, but as the regs expands and becomes more complex, so will this written paper. And as I said earlier, you're going to have questions that state or explain or list. So here's an example of a question from a 2019 paper. Describe in detail 5 risks specifically associated with marinas, and you get 10 marks.
5?
10 marks. But it says
I've got a boat.
describe
You need
in
armbands.
And water.
in detail. So you can't just write, and you get a whole page for that. You can't just write there's water. It says describe in detail. So unless you've specifically worked in one of those special locations, or you've got good knowledge of that, you're going to be, looking through that particular section because you've got 3 hours and you've probably spent 2 hours or so on the cable calcs alone. You're going to generally probably do the describe ones last. You're going to go for the state or list type questions because those are more straightforward. And then you're going to think about the describe ones, but that's just an example of a describe.
I've just remembered mine. I remember it. I just remembered like I had a flashback then. I'm not the strongest maths person, so I knew that I had to work harder at these questions that we're talking about. So I knew that I'd struggle in the maths and I had to describe. And mine was, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I had to talk about the design and the theory and that behind lighting up a church, a minster it was. And obviously, straight away, well, you can't drill to it, can you? Stuff's got to go outside in the garden and be pointed up, and there was concrete printed all on the ground, and they've got a bit of cages over them and all that. Now, luckily, where I live now, I live in a Minster town, and I'd been around that Minster when I was younger, and I'd seen those lights, you know what I mean? So I just started writing what I'd seen, but I got lucky. But I remember now, I'm not the best writer, and there was I was just pages and pages and pages. And I remember 3 hours being an incredibly long time. But I suppose that's looking around, you see it.
Yeah. You obviously get the, I was just going to say, you obviously get the random questions, which are going to be really bad, like that one that Rich has just given, but it's the base understanding of some of the other ones. So some of the questions I've seen recently say about describe what the ZS or the earth fault loop impedance is, and the amount of people not understanding the difference between ZS, ZE, R1 and R2. It's written throughout all the chief examiner reports about people list what a ZS is, but they can't actually tell you why we have a fault path and why parallel paths are involved, and that base level of understanding just isn't able to be explained, which is why so many people are failing. And to me, that's a worry.
Yeah,
100%. It's a worry. It's a reflection on training, I think, isn't it? To be honest,
it is. But
it is odd.
Because the regs is so complex as well, and there's so many things you need to know. Here's another question, for example. Explain why the common terminal on an auto transformer must be connected to the neutral conductor when present. Get 4 marks for that. But then here's another one, which you should get. List 6 different types of protected conductor. So that's just a list, isn't it? 6 marks. Each protected conductor you can write down. You're going to get a mark for it. List.
You are. I don't think I even fully understand that question. Can we answer that one as a group? List 6 different types of protected conductor.
Yeah.
What? So
you're challenging us, Jamie.
Well, I know. You know what? If you said to me, I don't know what it means. That's what I'm getting at. It's like you need to be involved in this thing because I'm too busy thinking about generating stuff there. I can't answer that. Is that like Is that like earth bars?
Protective conductors.
What?
Circuit protective conductors 1, isn't it?
Main bonding.
Lightning protection. All right, yes, I get in the flow, but
I think with this, if there is an interest for people who are following along, we could maybe break it down like we did with a 2391 and do a few episodes around how the course is structured.
Just
to cover it off.
If you had some of those questions, Mark, I can't answer them.
There are plenty of examples of different questions as well, but you don't need to train your brain for it, but you do, because 3 hours is not a long time when you're panicking, you're under exam conditions, you're trying to explain something, and you're thinking auto transformer, and you're flicking through the regs trying to find auto transformer, and you probably never come across one, you never worked on one or whatever, and then you spend too long on it when actually you should avoid that one then, because you don't know much about that one, and maybe go to the list type questions where you can go and look and find, and it's quite hard.
That's again, then that goes back to like a regs course where I say to people, they come in the first morning and go, you can't answer the questions because you're not in regs mode. You need to be in the regs mode and how they're wording, how their wording goes. And when he's read that one out, then I was like, there's not 6 bonding conductors, is there? You're lying. I had to generally think about it, get the flow for I can answer it. But I suppose that's what you need. Yeah, you need to just think like a Sparky, don't you? Switch on to Sparky mode. But yeah, that's it. 6 minutes today. I'm a big later.
Designers are designers. Most designers don't work on the tools, or they don't have an understanding. They'll say, "Oh, you got to get this 400 mil, whatever it is, into this main panel." And when you go to install it, you're like, "This will never work, mate." you can't get, they don't, sometimes
Yeah.
they don't have, so it's, they just sit in the office and design, are brilliant at design. And that's why not all Sparks will be designers and not all designers are Sparks. Some Sparks will go through the apprenticeship, they'll qualify, but the tools don't really suit them. So they'll go in the office because they're at that kind of, it's where they're at, so it is difficult.
We all find our place, don't we, for sure?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that the design is an aspect that is an interesting one for people. So while we're just covering off the last bit of the course, there's the classroom learning, there's the exam, and then there's the project. Is that about 40 hours-ish? That's the guide to build it, but it's not limited to 40 hours, is it? You can take longer if you want.
Yeah, and that's down to your assessor from the course that, as long as you keep in contact with them and explain, because sometimes things go on in your life and you don't really, you haven't got time to, keep them in the loop, or you need more time, or you can send them in. And we certainly did that, little bits of it at a time. So if you're on the right path, there's no real problem with that, because it cuts down the marking time of the assessor then, and they know that you're on the right track, or you might be miles away. And so I think you've got to be fair, but, they need to be able to have that knowledge to be able to apply it to design something, don't they, fundamentally? And each year they change it. City and Guilds, EAL do the same, where you get, anything from a gym to a fire station to a barrack. They're really good. So it is good. It is good. It's a great course, I think. It's good.
And a lot of the information we're talking about tonight is freely available. So all these figures and examiner reports and all of this are freely available on City and Guild's website.
Yeah.
It's not anything we've accessed as teachers, or it is literally, you can go on the website, you go to the 2396, you go to documents, and it has a list of all previous examiners' reports for the last 5 years, I think, maybe slightly less. And you can read, they always summarise why people failed the exam and what were the main areas that they couldn't explain and justify. So if you are going on the course, it's a good indication to look over the last couple of years as to where people have struggled and lost the most marks, because that might be an area to make sure you are clued up on, because if it's a reoccurring theme, it's probably coming up in your exam as well. So if for the last 3 years everybody's lost marks on the earth fault path, maybe make sure you're pretty good on your earth fault path, because it's possibly going to be 10 to 20 marks in your exam that you can get if you've gone through those past examiner papers.
Such a good tip. Use the resources that are out there, and pick up other people's failings to use to your own best benefit. And I'll link over to the City and Guilds data in the description alongside this video. So my kind of takeaway from the podcast is that maybe the CPSs could look at reintroducing a requirement for this course for their qualified supervisors, maybe. And for those people who are considering doing it, going with your eyes open. The pass rate is low, so you need to be fully prepared and top of your game before you're even thinking about it. But once you've done it, the rewards are there big time for you to give yourself the best career prospects. I don't know what the rest of you all think.
There's some good guidance and publications out there. I mean, the IT's design guide, the latest one, is very good. It's you're old man, mate.
I got the blue one.
But again, and also Brian Skidden's done a really good guide. I mean, it'll be on the 10th edition, but that's the 9th edition one. That's really good for that course design. Some good stuff on that. Some example questions and, some structured tables and things about how to lay your project out, and goes back into fundamental principles. The regs part 1 looks at part 3, general assessment, the characteristics and all that jazz. Explains why you should, start at part 1. Does your installation come under the scope of it? Yes. Move into part 3 and then part 4, part 5, etc. And it reminds you that, part 2 of the regs definitions is there, because if the reg starts talking about something, common one's extraneous conductive part. Well, what's extraneous mean? And, what's conductive? If it's neither, then it's not. If it is, it may be. Sparks don't ever go to part 2. You can use part 2 anytime you want. It clarifies what it is it's talking about. So don't be afraid to go in there and find out what it is. What's a final circuit? I don't know. It's a socket, it's a light. Well, what actually is it? Go back into part 2 anytime you want and have an understanding of what it is it's talking about. And the regs, each table or each part of it, there's always a load of notes that go with the bloody table. So you need to not only look at the table, but look at the notes that go with the table to see if it applies or it doesn't apply. And it becomes quite complex then, even Appendix 4, where you've got all your different tables for this, that, and whatever. It may not apply, and you may need to look at the notes under the table, but again, that's down to the teaching of the course, isn't it, to highlight those bits too. It's not the easiest book to get your head around, and that's why there's so many guides and things that go with it. But if it was easy, everybody would do it and everybody pass. But it is something to aspire to. I think so. That's my thoughts on it. There we go.
Cheers, Richard. Any closing comments, Craig?
I just think that you should aim to go for it, and you should aim to be in that top 17 to 20 people that get a distinction, and know that you are pushing to be the best you can be at what you're doing. And that for me is what everybody's target should be. Doesn't have to be designed, just try and be the best you can at it rather than aiming to be bottom end of it.
Good point. And yourself, Jamie?
If you can't pass this course, you're thick. No, not really. two bits, yeah, 2 bits. Time scale is one, right? You can come out your time and you can spend 5 or 10 years getting yourself ready for this course if that's what you need to do. Looking around, experiencing it, practicing it, getting those books. So, like, I did this when I was in my 20s, but never really used it properly until I was in my 30s. So the time scale thing, don't worry about it. Just if you're aware it's there and you get those books, you can start thinking how this thing's doing and developing around what you do. And the other one is, I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, time scale. Oh, and also employer-wise, yeah. If you walk in with, if I get your CV and you've got a 2-400 on it or whatever the model equivalent is this, which I would find out if I was employing people, I'd look at that and I would check that. If you come with a 2391, I'll ask you some probing testing questions, and I can establish how good you are at testing. I can't do that with this course. I'd probably ask you to supply a certificate original, because if you've got this course, you are probably getting a job, because I know how hard it is. So yeah, so it used to be the old 2391, the hard one. Used to say that to people, and I still say you got the old 2391 because that is for me like is a tick in the box, you're straight in, and so is the 2400 whatever this is called now. Whatever it's called this week. So yeah, it's a strong. I hate to use this word, yeah, but it's a powerful course in the trade for people that know about.
It is. That's a good way to finish it. I think it's a real standout course that we should maybe push a bit more as industry, get some more people taking it, get their eyes open to what's involved, and see if we can have a new wave of people doing the design courses. I just want to thank you all for taking the time to come and chat again. Before we end it, thank you. I realise it's eating into your evenings. And it's been brilliant to see you coming back on, in particular, Jamie, having you served your punishment over in Apprentice 1-to-1 jail.
Not everyone would say that. Not everyone would say that, but thanks for having me back.
No, well, we're hoping to get you on a bit more often as well now, because you always bring a good insight. Thank you very much, gents, and we will see you all on the next one.
Cheers.
Catch you later. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Apprentice 1-to-1 podcast. If you've got any comments in and around the discussion today, please do drop them in below. Huge thanks to all of the sponsors: Napit, Centaur, Humber Electrical Training, Conrad Energy, Klein Tools, RPP, TIS, M2, Proteus, Tamlex, Modesoft Electrical OM, Super Rod, and Schneider Electric.